Hey Anna, this is Mrs. Skogland. Just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback on your summer assignment. We're mostly going to be talking about your first paragraph since that was the one you starred, but I'll kind of reference some other things as I'm going through as well. So the first thing that I look for in a body paragraph, which is this paragraph's format, is a strong topic sentence, which ideally would clearly answer this question, but just be a sentence, right? It's not going to get too into the details yet. I noticed, Anna, that a lot of times, not just in this paragraph, but in others, your topic sentence sort of alludes to the question, like you talk about the right and left hemisphere, and you say they are different, but you don't describe that for me. So I think I would have liked to see maybe more initially, even in this topic sentence, of like, what is the difference between L and R directed thinking? So just that would be a good revision to go back and make. Next, I actually look at the end of your paragraph for what's called a concluding sentence. And again, we want that to tie back to the question so that the reader is clearly like, okay, this is the end, it's wrapping it all up. Again, I noticed in many of your paragraphs you have this second piece of commentary after this evidence, but there's not a clear concluding sentence. So that would be a good thing we could go back and add, is that conclusion that sort of, again, ties everything together, okay? Next, I looked at your evidence. And I think that probably one of the strengths that you have as a writer is your embedding, or what's like integrating your evidence. So if I read this out loud, this sentence says, it's stated that roughly 90% of the population, blah, blah, blah. That's really nice, Anna, because even with the quotes, it reads really smoothly, just like a, smooth sentence, which is exactly what we want. So that's great. What I'd like you to think about a little more is your selection of evidence, okay? Because, like, for example, on this question, when it's asking you to describe the difference between R-directed thinking and L-directed thinking, you start to talk about, like, the population being left or right-handed. And I don't really, Pink talks about that in the chapter, certainly, but I don't really think that's what he's talking about with R-directed thinking or L-directed thinking. And so I think that also sort of hurts your commentary later when you're talking about, like, controlling movements, which isn't really what the question is asking. So just really make sure that you are clearly going back to the question and really, being selective. Next, I looked at commentary. I think, unfortunately, some of your commentary, Anna, was kind of hurt just because of the evidence selection, because it was hard for you to, I think, tie back to the question in your commentary when the evidence didn't maybe relate super well. I would also like to just maybe have a little bit more. So, like, for example, here you have a pretty good quote about, like, R-directed thinking, going to determine who soars and stumbles. And then you kind of just say, like, it's going to be essential. I think a really good piece of commentary would explain why people who are excelling in R-directed thinking will do so well, or maybe give an example. So just kind of consider expanding that. Finally, I looked at your conventions and citations. So conventions, just kind of some minor things, like I noticed a little fragment here, like we won't usually start with which. But citations looked really good, so that was great. Keep that up. And then you did a nice job on your R-directed questions as well. I just wanted to commend you, especially on your visual notes. These were like super awesome, and I'm amazed that you can create that. My drawings are like obviously terrible in comparison. So anyway, just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback.